Hear anything from Drew? No. Okay, 6 o'clock. Call to order the regularly scheduled school board meeting for Monday, March 8th. At this time, if you'd have joined me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All raise your right hand. All in favor? All right, motion carried. Next, we'll move on to item 1.4, Mr. Carlskin, the VFW.
Good evening and welcome visitors. Thank you for coming, and I'd like to thank the school board and Mr. Feldkamp for allowing us to present tonight. Normally, the VFW has a pizza party for the students that participate and win the recognized in the Patriots Pen and Voice of Democracy. However, because of the famous COVID, we have to change that, as everyone understands. Tonight, we're recognizing the winners of the Patriots Pen, which is middle school students in grades, grades 6 through 8, high school students, and the middle school students are Patriots Pen winners, and it is a written essay, about 300 words, and I have to thank the middle school teachers, the middle school administration, and Mark is no longer with us, and he was a great supporter of this program, and we certainly appreciate that. As you all miss him, we do as well. The teachers are very supportive and cooperative. And at the high school, we have Voice of Democracy. Voice of Democracy is a written as well as an oral essay that's done by the students, and we're recognizing 6 middle school students and then 4 high school students tonight. And then we also this year are recognizing 3 teachers: an elementary teacher of the year, a middle school teacher of the year, and a high school teacher of the year. So, and I know you have a long agenda, and I don't want to take up a great deal of time, so I'll get to moving. So,
All right, you postponed a month, I think, for class.
it was cold.
It was cold.
It's a little different. So, well, and we have cash prizes for the students as well, and the teachers. The first person I'd like to recognize is Alexandria Trumbull, who is a honorable mention in the Patriots Pen. And if they're apparently not here.
She is.
Yes, she is.
Oh, excuse me. Come on forward. Don't be shy. You're going to get your picture taken. So, and congratulations, Alexander.
This one.
The next honorable mention is Patriots Pen is Harley Rondo. Harley, are you here? And our other honorable mention is Kathleen Carter. Is Kathleen here? Our third place winner is Marshall Wright. And the honorable mention received cash awards of $25. Marshall's award is for $50 plus a certificate. Kendall Smith is the second place winner, and Kendall receives a $75 prize. And Addison Booker is our winner from the middle school. She took first place and receives a $100 prize.
Want to recognize the middle school?
Let's, and for the Voice of Democracy, we have 4 winners, as I mentioned earlier. And Andrew Wilson is our 4th place winner. Is Andrew here? Andrew receives $50. Benjamin Manis is our 3rd place winner, and Benjamin also receives $50. Katie Skinner is our 2nd place winner, and Katie received $75. I guess Katie wasn't able to be here. And our 1st place winner for Voice of Democracy is Kane Phillips. And I'd like to embarrass Caden just a little bit. He was a baby when his mom and I worked together, and he was born when he was born. That was a few days ago. So, but he done most. All right, now I'd like to recognize our teachers, and this was a different type of process, recognition by the principals and by other people in the buildings. I'd like to first recognize our elementary teacher, and the elementary teacher is Sarah Porter. Sarah, here. And the teachers received a $50 award plus a very nice class. Our middle school teacher, and I'd like to, let me read what's on the insignia if I can, please. The plaque. National Citizenship Educator Teacher Post-Recognition Award presented, and our middle school teacher goes to Leanne Bond. Okay, and our high school teacher is Pamela Oribolo.
Thank you so much. I have to tell you, I had a flashback of this young man sitting in my classroom, gnawing over a glass of water in his lap, and his mom had to bring him fresh pants.
Again, I'd like to thank the staff, the students, and the parents for their participation. participation. And again, school board, thank you for allowing us to present tonight. And, you know, I've been to several school districts throughout my career. And when it comes to support of veterans, Tonganoxie, you're on top. So thank you very much. You guys did a great job.
You're all more than willing to stick around for the next couple hours. It's an exciting meeting, but
Middle school students and high school students, we can take a quick picture out in the hallway, that'd be great.
Mr. Mayor? You got that on video, right, for us? We can save that for Justin?
If that's the worst thing that happens to me this week.
Mr. Man, you're next.
The older you get, the less you care. Right. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for all the discussion that we had a week and a half ago. That was very, it was good discussion for me, because I want to try to be a really good leader. I think I do a good job of being a leader. And after I left there, I thought, well, what can I do a better job of? And I sat down with our administrative team, and we talked about where we go from here, especially with our math data. I'm going to make this real quick because to me, this is the most important part that we're going to do the rest of the year, and that's trying to close those gaps with our kids who are not showing growth as we get to the end of the year and preparing for summer school. So, and okay, so the last time I spoke in front of you, we talked about improving 3 areas at Tonganoxie Elementary School. Improving our student intervention protocols, our BSP period, or maybe for Stephanie, the MTSS process. Improving our assessment scores by using data to drive our decisions in MAP, and improving our reading scores by adding phonics back into the curriculum. So, and we're doing all 3 of those things. We created a phonics committee, we added our Hagerty and our Sunday, and we're seeing the positive things of that. We've been working on our MAP assessment scores, and the most important thing we've been doing is with BSP period. And we looked back and said, okay, what can we do better? How can we reach tier 3 kids across the building? And we created an MTSS program, BSP, that aligns with the recommendations from the state, and it actually aligns with what our BSP committee did last year, but we haven't been able to get back with our committees because, as we talked about before, we just haven't had that professional development every day. So what are we doing? We're going to focus on some very strict guidelines. We're going to address our tier 3 kids twice a week in math, and twice a week in reading, and once a week in our social emotional areas. Okay? How's that going to look? Our tier 3 kids are going to work with our title teachers and our SPED teachers with direct interventions. Our tier 1 and tier 2 kids, which are a majority of our kids, will be working in the classroom. And we've got some specific things lined out of what we expect, and we're working on our flow charts, some consistency. So when we look at students and where they're at with their data, we'll know exactly where we need to go with their interventions for both reading and math, and on 1 day a week with our social emotional things that we're doing for our kids. And our counselors and our social workers, Shelby and Annette, are going to drive that. And our plan is, when we come back on March 22nd, we're going to hit this rolling for the rest of the year. And we're going to try to prepare our kids for summer school. So, what other steps are we taking? We're developing a flow chart to identify interventions based on student needs for all BSP areas. When we left in all this, we had done that with our reading. We're still lacking math, and we're still working on our social emotional. And we have some things in place that we're going to start working on. Our title teachers are great. They have great resources. We just need to get it in the hands of our teachers, because where the real work's going to be done is on a regular basis in the classroom, and progress monitoring, which is built into that as well. We're moving our spring map test window up to the earliest we can do it, which is April 20th. And that way we can get that data back immediately, and we can see how well we've progressed over the last 6 weeks, and also get us ready for our transition as we get ready for summer school and identify those kids. The data from our map, classroom observations, state assessments will be used to determine who would be eligible to attend summer school. Now, that's just going to be one group. The thing that we need to realize is that the teachers who see their kids every day in the classroom are going to see some kids that maybe not show up as deficient in a math score. We're going to try to find as many kids that need that help, because our whole goal is when we come back in the fall, we want to close those gaps, and we really think that this readjusted BSP is going to do that. And then finally, all these steps are designed to close learning gaps, and that's what we're seeing. And as a result, as I stated a couple weeks ago, it's that 6-month break from instruction from our kids being in the classroom with our teachers, and then opening up a school during the pandemic and just trying to survive. So we've done a good job with that, and we feel like where we're at right now, what we got going when we come back from spring break, we're going to be ready to do it. Now, moving forward, you asked me last week, what do you want at TES? If you said the number one thing, I'd say we need to add another counselor. We have almost 800 students in our building, and we are using two counselors to service them, and the recommended student ratio for a counselor is 1 to 250. We're doing great. Fortunately, we have great counselors. We got great support in other areas, and we're able to manage that. The next thing is we lost our Title aide para who's been working side by side with our 2 Title math teachers for the last 6 years. She took a job in another part of the district, and now we're down to 2 Title math teachers. With budget constraints, we're going to fill the Title math teacher or Title aide person. We have 2 people that are interested. We're going to go through that process and have them ready to go in the fall, whoever we select. But down the road, to balance out our needs, because we're a targeted area for Title I, we'd really like to get a 3rd teacher. Big Witch, a playground on the north side of the building for pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade, maybe 2nd grade. The manipulatives and toys out there really aren't designed for the little ones. And just with having the one playground, it really restricts a lot of things that we do within our schedule. And we feel like a healthy play is important. That's why we have recess designed that way. But and then finally, I know we're absorbing a teacher next year based on our numbers and need. But at some point, we'd like to get back so we have 7 sections. Smaller class sizes would benefit not just students but teachers. You can do more in-depth learning. I had a nice visit with one of our teachers, been there a long time, and that's what she said. Hey, if you can do anything, let's reemphasize the importance of having smaller class size. Unfortunately, and I'm sure Mr. Feldkamp has talked to you, a lot of that's going to be based on what our legislature does. And hopefully from this demographic study and what we see in the fall, that we'll have those numbers back up so we can, have a need for a 7th section. But that's kind of an overview where we're going. I'm excited about the next 2 months. I'm really excited about summer school, and I'm confident that our staff will take on the challenge, and we'll be ready to hit the ground running in August and have our kids caught up with those growth areas. So, any questions?
Questions?
And if you have any individually, I know I've talked to Justin because I have Justin kids in the building. I haven't had a chance to reach out to Stephanie, and I know I have Drew, but feel free to call me or send me an email with any questions. I'd be happy to ask anything. But we have a great staff. They know that we have some challenges and we've been restricted a little bit by the pandemic, and we're doing good things. It's not that they haven't been working hard. We're just dealing with the side effects of that long break from students not being with the kids, not being with their teachers, and also all the restrictions that the pandemic has put on us. But I'm excited about the rest of the year, and I think summer school is going to be great, and I'd be happy to come back in the fall or whenever Mr. Feldkamp to give you an update on where we're at.
Yes, sir. This is maybe kind of an unfair question for Lauren and them, but you talked about how, you had plans and then you couldn't do some things, well, we pushed all the PE days to the beginning.
PD, yes.
With this federal funding that's coming, I know that summer school's gonna take a lot of it.
Well, I haven't talked to Mr. Feldkamp about a request I have. We may have to bring some teachers in, especially our BSP committee. I'll give you a quick example because I want to make sure I don't getting the discussions going.
I brought it up, I didn't mean to put him on.
If we can bring our BSP committee back so we can start off where we left and get our math interventions lined out and our social emotional, I think we'll be okay. But that's gonna take some extra time. And right now our teachers are working their butts off and they don't have a lot of extra time. So if we're gonna bring them in, it's gonna have to be outside the regular contract day, which would cost a little bit of money, but I think it'd be money well spent because we're gonna go and look how we can help kids. So that was an illustration. Yes, sir.
So, you know, with the long break they had in the last round of math testing, I know that there's some ground to be made up there as far as getting them back on the original
Yes.
curve, right, where the line progress. So we're then taking the new test in April, is that correct? Or
We're taking our spring math test in April.
Okay. Is there a target that you're trying to shoot for to say, hey, we're on that path to where we should need to
Yeah.
be at, or is there?
Do you know what my target is? I
Yeah.
want every fifth grader to be on or back at grade level when they go over to sixth grade. And I want every kid in our building to be at or above grade level in math and reading. That's our target. Are we gonna be able to do it in 2 months with the deficiencies that we're seeing and the gaps? I guess anything's possible, but we just wanna see growth. Our goal is to show growth at all 3 levels, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and try to get those fifth graders so they're ready to transition. Otherwise, we're gonna have to make some tough decisions, because I don't wanna send a fifth grader over to the middle school that's not ready for sixth grade, because we haven't had the time to get them caught up and close those gaps.
Did you see a similar drop from tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, or was there a difference?
You know, honestly, I could look and get that answer for you. We haven't looked, I mean, when I looked at it, we looked at how we were grouping these. We did adjust our percentiles so they aligned with what the special education requirement is. We also looked at the middle school and see where they were. So we went, in math, there's 6 areas. We just went with the red, which is our below standards.
Right.
Our yellow is gonna be approaching, which is basically from about 26 percentile to the 49th, and then, or to the 50th, and then from 51 up is that they are at or above their grade level, and that's how we did it. Because if you get 5 groups, it gets in a lot, but you have to remember, there's a lot more information and data than just a math score that you gotta take into and establishing those students in the intervention. But we need somewhere to start, and that's what we're doing with our math scores.
Well, every student has a MAP growth goal.
Yes.
So that's a good place to start, would be that MAP. If they're meeting their growth goal or exceeding that, then you're
Right.
on a good track.
And that's where we saw, well, we talked about it last time, Laura, but we're fine. It's not that we don't have the ability or the resources, we just needed some redirection and some pretty straight black and white guidelines that we have. And I feel like we got a great plan. I talked to the head of TANS, a former elementary principal who's an overseer, her name's Amy De La Russa, that oversees the MTSS model, and we went bullet by bullet with it before we even sent it out to our staff. So we're right on track. It aligns with that. It's something they've done in the past, and it's something that our BSP committee had kind of designed, and I kind of took them down a different direction. It wasn't very successful, so now we're gonna get back and start doing with things that we can be successful.
And then after the test, I would assume that you'll have that information so that.
Absolutely.
That's our plan.
Yeah. Okay. An update then.
Any other questions for Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chip. All right, next on the agenda, Bill Adams-Wadesky.
All right.
Here, I think.
And I think his report is in the.
Yeah, it's attached to the agenda. I mean, I think everyone's a little aware we had some challenges with the cold weather with the elementary school.
I can kind of introduce this a little bit here. When we had all the challenges through the extreme cold, we did have a visit with P1 Group first initially, who brought to our attention some of the needs that were they saw taking place here at the elementary school, and a little bit of an insight onto the high school with TPAC in the East Gym area. And then from that point on, we just felt it was good to bring Bill Adams in for a second opinion, basically, is how it started. And you did some research and then came back with a recommendation to Mitch and I in a separate meeting. And were you part of that? Yeah. Jim Boswell
I
was there.
sat in on a meeting, and I mean, this is kind of a presentation in terms of the proposal we'll probably see here coming up, I guess, but anyway, so go
Well,
ahead.
yeah. So I believe you asked me to take a look at this from the standpoint that Aaron and my duty is to the board only. And it doesn't matter what other people say, we're going to tell you what we believe. In fact, in general and in principle, I agree with P1. There are the classrooms in the administration areas in this building are served by two systems, and I don't want to get too deep in this, but one is a fresh air system that goes into each classroom or each pod or in the administration, which provides some heating and cooling, but mainly fresh air. The second part of the system is a variable refrigerant flow system, and this is where I lose everybody. But the VRF system heats and cools the rooms, moving Freon around. Okay, it's a computer that heats and cools is what it is. I reviewed the last 18 months of repair invoices from P1, and approximately $40,000 to $50,000 worth of work, about 300 hours, man hours. And you didn't ask me this, but my general impression is you've been billed fairly for the scope of work and the number of hours. It looked to be very fair to me. In the end, it's kind of a game of whack-a-mole with the VRF system. We affix one and another one pops up, and this has been going on for some time, which I think is what prompted P1 to bring up this issue. They're saying, look, we're as tired of this as you are. The current system is, and I wasn't here during the construction, but it appears to me to be a first generation VRF system, which means they've gotten a lot better. And because there are so many electronics involved, if it isn't working right, it's time to replace the system. There are eight VRF systems serving the classrooms and the admin. One of the questions in front of this group is, do we do them all at once? Do we do them over 2 or 3 or 4 years? We need some advice in that. And then just back up a general comment. The fresh air systems seem to all be working well. There's not a lot of maintenance related to those systems. And there's a big rooftop unit on this building that serves the gyms in this area. And it also is requiring very little, just routine maintenance. So the issue in this building boils down to the VRF systems, in my opinion. My recommendation is to replace the system, and based on what the board wants to do over time, I would recommend that Esky and Associates prepare the bid documents to make sure we get qualified installers. I'm sorry if I'm backing up again. Let's not repeat what happened the first time. The technical aspect of installing the piping is integral to the proper operation of the system. I'm not convinced the piping was installed entirely properly. So there are some things we can put in place to get qualified bidders with qualified installers, and bring in a factory rep to inspect the installation, and I think we'll avoid some of those issues. Yes, sir.
So is there well issues that you think you're seeing at the compressors as far as the piping goes? Is it the are the pressures and everything right? What is it that's leading you to believe that there is a possibility that piping might not be installed?
I'm relying on P1's report that they actually sent somebody out that in their, one of their folks that's an expert in this. And if there is a P-trap specified in front of a compressor or a controller, and it may say that it's to be 2 inches by 2 1/4 by 2 inches, and it has to be 12 inches from the controller on a horizontal line. I mean, those are the types of things that are involved in piping these things properly. Every manufacturer has their specific recommendations, and so you cannot be sloppy in the install, okay? And based on, I didn't go out and check it myself. P1's proven themselves to be, straightforward, and I took them at their word that they inspected the piping practices and said that's a contributing factor. If you can imagine pressures, these sensors are measuring pressures inside the system and heat, and they may require laminar flow before you get to the sensor, and if the piping isn't done right, then you're not getting the proper readings. But also a big portion of the repair calls are electronics. Just exactly why they're failing, I really can't answer you. The thing about electronics is it's very hard to do preventive maintenance and pick up a problem with controls, the system controls, which is all electronic. You kind of have to wait for things to break. And just my opinion, it's breaking too much. And if you want to do it in bits and pieces, I mean, over 2 or 3 years, or 4 years, we'll get with Mitch and we'll identify, the bad actors and start with them. And
Based upon P1 and the look you took at it, was there a time where you started seeing an increase failure rate, at a certain number of years after it was installed, or has there been a steadily increasing of rate from the beginning?
well, all I looked at was the last 18 months.
Okay.
And so I really can't answer that.
Okay.
It's pretty steady the last 18 months. It's just pretty routine. 300 hours, service hours in 18 months, they're out here a lot.
So
But, yes.
what does a preventative maintenance agreement get you?
Well,
The reason I'm asking is we've been paying bills to P1.
well,
So I'm shocked that we pay a maintenance agreement and then all of a sudden we have a tragedy.
the maintenance.
I understand the electric components just quit. I get all
Right.
that. I understand that.
Right. What the preventative maintenance agreement gets is eyeballs on the system, looking for leaks, looking for bearings. There are moving parts. Basically, all the mechanical pieces can be inspected. They put gauges on and check pressures to see if the pressures are correct. In a VRF system, you measure refrigerant into the system down to the ounce, and most other systems it's by the pound. So in any system, a preventative maintenance basically is checking pressures and all of the mechanical, the pumps, the compressors, the moving parts, checking that temperatures of the coils in a conventional system are what they should be. I'm a very big believer in preventative maintenance. But in this, like I said, most of the issues that we're dealing with here are related to the electronic components Because you have a control system that runs the VRF system, and then you have a building control system that reads what's going on in certain locations. So you really have two
So what
controls.
should the life cycle of these units have been?
Really, 12 to 15 years. Which is frankly true for your fresh air units and the rooftop unit. The convention is 12 to 15 years. And all the other equipment on the roof and everything looks very good. It's obviously maintained and it's operating. And the only reason I say that is because there aren't any maintenance bills other than preventative maintenance. So there's 3 systems on this building. So the VRF is the problem child, if that makes sense.
So is there different technology today than that system?
Yes.
So
Yes.
then, if you go on a 2-year plan to replace these out, will they be compatible if you do that?
Oh, yes, I feel certain, and we'll make sure of that, but I feel certain that that would be the case.
We're probably 3 at least generations past this initial VFR. You may not know, but we were talking maybe 4th generation.
It could be, yeah, in
How old is this building?
6 years.
only, what is this, it's 7 or 8 years old?
7 to 8 years is where we're at.
6 years in the building.
Well, when they were initially installed, I think it's going on 7.
I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions. It's still, it never gets too hot or too cold. It's just not the way it's supposed to work right now. And we've got a problem. I guess, I mean, it seemed like Bill's expertise and Aaron helping us kind of come to a solution on that that'd be a good option for the board. And that's why Lauren and I asked him to come give us an update. I mean, and we're working through this master plan and different things and the bond. So, I mean, you know, we can't necessarily solve all the problems tonight, but we can maybe get the ball rolling. Go ahead, Drew.
Is your recommendation to go back with a more modern VRF or a different technology?
Yes, my recommendation is to go back with a more modern VRF, and we can do a little research and make sure we're going to be installing the best or one of the very best systems. The building is built around a VRF system, and if we change systems, which is something that we looked at and I discussed, if we change to a more conventional rooftop unit serving each of these pods, now we have ductwork, I'm not exaggerating, probably 4 to 5 feet in diameter. We have to find a way to get it from the roof down into the classrooms and distribute it. And the return air, same thing. It would potentially eliminate the fresh air units, but nonetheless, I think there would be, well, I know there would be structural, architectural issues, because, it's going to change the way the building looks inside. And that's why, considering all of that, and a newer generation VRF, that's why I'm staying with that.
Are we flexible, will we have some flexibility to go with different manufacturers in that process if we were to phase it in, or do we need to stick with the same manufacturer we have now, or what's the, I mean, obviously we would pick one and probably have probably a consistent system once it's done, but is that what's the options
No,
there?
we need to stick with one manufacturer, whichever one we decide to go with.
Okay, so it could be different than the one we have now.
Yes, in fact, it likely will be different than the one we have.
What's the warranty on this stuff?
It's usually, I honestly, I'm not gonna guess. I don't know.
Fair enough.
It's multi-year on the components, but I don't know how many.
Most of it ran out in February, is what P1 has told me, February last year, is what P1 told me, but the big issue is The installer didn't register every single unit, so there's 3 units per pod. And a few of them, they registered the main master unit, they didn't register the second and third units. So when they're calling for the warranty on these parts, they're saying they're literally sitting 1, 2, 3, this one's warranty, this one's not. And I don't know how that happened, I obviously wasn't here, but, yeah, most of the parts, the major parts ran out last February. And then we have some of them up there that aren't even actually warranted.
So is there a reason to stage the replacement other than financial consideration?
No, do them all at one time, if you'd like.
Yeah, because it's gonna take a crane and probably a July timeline, you know, when we don't have summer school before school starts. There's no way that we could possibly, in my opinion, get that done this July. It would have to be July of 2022. And yes, your answer is if we map this out correctly, we could do it all in one setting.
So I'm sure you have a little better price doing it all at once.
Right.
Bigger job, one crew comes in and stays with it until they're done.
I think you also, our plan, Mitch and I have talked quite a bit about this, but our plan is to go one more year and Band-Aid it. Hope that we don't have as severe weather as we had 2-3 weeks ago and make it through for one more year on the current system.
So for the new high school, one, we're not doing the same type of technology.
That's correct.
And number 2 is like, what are we doing to avoid, the install error or potential installation or some inspection or some witnessing of that to make sure everything is going in correctly, and we're getting all the warranties, right? Somebody here might know that.
So, Ben, David, Darren, Allison are gonna be watching this pretty well. We have a third party group, internal to our group, we have our engineering services, you might remember Emily, she came.
Yep.
There's 5 or 6 people in her group, they're gonna come out and help do inspections. So they're engineers, former trade partner, so they know that business, right? So they're gonna come out and do it, and we better get our equipment working. Like that's a fair expectation to have of, like, looking you in the eye, we'll get
Yeah.
it working, right? That's a requirement, and I would guess,
Additionally, yeah, Bill will be out here a little bit, along with myself, double checking the double checkers, when McCown looking at that stuff.
and DLR's team is gonna be involved in
DLR's
checking
team.
that stuff as
Yeah.
well.
Can you purchase additional warranty beyond factory warranty?
You can't.
Mm.
There's a pro and con
Yeah.
evaluation that goes with that, Chris, because while you're paying a maintenance cost now, it could be cheaper to pay an ongoing maintenance program than it could be a warranty cost. Right, additional warranty.
It's like when you go to Best Buy and they ask you to buy the, 10-year warranty on your fridge. I don't know of it, but.
I'm just thinking you're talking big dollars.
Sure.
I mean, I get it.
On the warranty side too, as Luke and his team put together the O&M manuals on the job, we'll also be looking at those along with his team, and making sure they're completing stuff to get turned over to you guys.
So what our thoughts are is that, to kind of make this clear, Bill would help us through the process of putting this out for bid. I mean, you can explain it a lot better than me, but what service would you provide the district to make sure that we do this right, from start to finish?
Well, there's a lot of common sense, and we'd start with the building envelope and the size of the equipment, and the capacity of the equipment that we currently have. Let's verify that it is the right capacity equipment. we also verify and help specify the effective temperature range in which the equipment can work. When these type of direct freon systems, like a heat pump, this is like a very sophisticated heat pump. You know, when the temperature drops to 15 degrees and lower, anybody who has a heat pump knows that it's not very effective. It's not very good at heating. But you can also buy equipment that has what they call low ambient controls, low ambient capability. I don't know what's on your roof. I've got a few hours invested in this, and the technical side hasn't been investigated. So I'm sorry if I'm. So we're going to investigate and make sure the right size of equipment. Would probably like to limit the equipment manufacturers to 2 or 3, based on who have the best reputation in the industry. We'll verify and make it a part of the bid process that you have to have factory certified installers, and that's, you name them, and they're the ones that are going to be on site. We'll make it known that we're going to bring the factory out to inspect the installation. And as a former contractor, when all of those conditions are put in the bid package, you understand. So if you don't have factory trained guys, you're not going to throw in a price, because it's going to be inspected. And so basically, on the recommendation of the board, are we going to do it all at once? We need some of those things, but I want to be careful. I'm not going to cross into engineering. I'm not licensed to do engineering, but I can sure check the capacities and the capabilities of the systems and do some research to put together a bid package. And once again, with your permission, probably limit the number of bidders that it goes to some people that we think would be capable contractors.
Quality bidders.
Quality, yes.
Just to add to that, a little bit, Bill, if I can. So, yeah, the idea would be that Bill and myself, as being associates with, represent the board in this process, to develop an RFP that's competitive and has all the right components in it that make sure that it's a quality project. We would come up with the bidder list, issue the RFP, manage the design, the engineering of it, and then work with the district to implement the plan. When it gets installed, how you work around, if it's in the summer, how you work around the facilities, work with Mitch and his team, and kind of do what we're doing for the high school, but just on that smaller scale.
So it feels like then, if we were to do that, then we've put this building's, it sounds like that this building's new units will have the same expected life as the learning center building. So at that point in time, the replacement of those, our 2 largest buildings will be in sync. I mean,
Same cycle.
the same cycle, right?
Mm-hmm. Potentially, yes.
And there's some advantage to phasing it in that regard as well, because we're coming up dangerously close to where the whole district's gonna be there, because middle school is on the same life cycle as the existing high school. So the TPAC and the gym. And so, there's definitely a big plan that has to be developed to avoid what you're saying of 15 years or 16 years from right now, or high school, elementary school, and then possibly the middle school, maybe a year or 2 behind that. Obviously, maybe 5-year increments. I don't know what the idea is, but
Yeah, I think we need to slightly expand the scope of what Aaron's proposed to include a broader view of HVAC that would go into the master planning process. So, really almost a, whatever it would be, 20-year look at when we think those events might happen, because I think that's,
And I believe that is part of DLR's
yes.
master planning.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, she definitely mentioned that as a big part of the facility review and the HVAC. I mean, she's very aware of the situation we're in.
This was more of a, you know, looking at it in the
Just a
immediate
just a
term.
procurement process that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good points. We've talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah, you'll have to save up for 15 years to write the big check every.
Scary endeavor.
Yeah, I mean, if you know it's coming, it's one thing, but it's, if you get caught off guard and.
Yeah, it's not good.
So, is it the thought that you would come back, I mean,
Well, I think it's an entertaining proposal from them. And
For-
then,
for
I mean,
next
if we
month.
need to, yeah, get it on the agenda.
For next
kind of move
For,
forward.
for the next meeting.
that's what I,
Yeah, I think that's, I think we felt it important to get it, timeliness to kind of get the discussion started and.
Well, one more thing.
Yes.
So long-term, because I mean, you know, I'm talking 15, 20 years beyond out. Is there something for a master plan or utility plan to start transitioning away from all of these individual units to something that is not on a 15-year cycle, that is more of a centralized system that has, I mean, there's, first cost is a little bit higher, but I would assume. But then long-term, you're not in that cycle, and you have something that, is that an option long-term? With not these buildings, but it would be future stuff that would be.
Well,
Go ahead, Luke.
So you're talking basically going away from VR, potentially in this building?
No, not in this building. I'm talking like a strategic plan of buildings not yet defined, like you know, if 25 years from now, we need another elementary school, right? This one is hit capacity. At some point, assuming everything moves like it, eventually, that should happen. Right. So when that happens, with a new building that's a completely blank slate, right? Then you're getting away from that. I'm not talking about converting anything we already have.
So say from a conversion factor here, you're limited because of clinic space.
Yeah.
So that URS system allows you to have smaller ductwork, and in some places no ductwork-free systems. So you just don't have physical spaces on your system that needs a different system.
Yeah, so I'm talking about.
What we see today's market and how I sort of view the evolution of K-12 market in general from an HVAC standpoint is there's a lot of drive, obviously, from a first-time cost because of that capital expenditure, right? You have a bond, you got limited dollars, you have to make the most bang for your buck there. And we are seeing, but we do see a lot of school districts considering floor-pipe systems more and more because of a maintenance standpoint. They still get energy efficiency, they respond better to the temperature swings like we've got, and dial them back and not lose efficiency that you lose from a VRF standpoint. But it's all about whether you make that a priority in your long-term planning.
Right.
Because it's a different thought process, Drew, and it's gotta be, we have found it has to be very consistently driven, that we wanna have those premium systems that, in our opinion, last longer and give a higher energy efficiency. You got a guy right here that can tell you yes or no, if I'm beating you full of it. But what we find is what happens in the school world with turnover that happens in lots of places, at various levels, is you lose some of that priority establishment.
Yeah.
Whether that's the folks that are sitting in front of me, right, 15 years, it could be a totally different group.
Yep.
Right, and so that's the challenge that we see in the school world, and then you get folks that are just driven by that first cost, right?
If I might just tug that string a little bit more. A four-pipe system, for people who don't know, is 2 pipes, or a supply, hot water supply, chill water supply in return for each. That's a 4-pipe system, so when the weather swings, you can just switch back and forth.
Or one side of the building could be doing one thing and the other side of the building might be.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. First cost is a real issue. Preventative maintenance is really an issue. They still, because there's a lot of moving parts, the PM frankly is a little more money. Because you have a chiller, you have a boiler, you have pumps, you have valves, da, 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 da. And all those pipes will go to, let's say it's a kind of a central area, to an air handling unit that then produces the hot or cold air, and then it's distributed to the library and the multipurpose room. That might be one air handler. All these pieces of equipment have limited life.
Right.
And air handlers, some of them go 20 years, but if they're not well maintained, they might last 12. So now what I'm trying to say is,
They're always
it's a 4-pipe system is a superior performance system, but you're always going to be fixing things. You're always going to be replacing things.
We have that at the west, that's what's at the west campus of the high school, is the 4-pipe system. And I don't have a whole lot to complain about it. But we do have, I mean, he's right, there's a cost to it. And I don't know if we've ever done any major work on it, but we're getting ready to. Just replacing some valves and things that are really starting to go out, but it's old and it's probably my least big headache, I would say, in the district, so.
And Drew, the reality is by the time you get there, so VRS is relatively new on the market, right? And it's used to pick up the people, the districts that want efficiency, but they don't want to pay for the 4-pipe system. But by the time you get to another new building, there's gonna be a lot more data related to that VRS system, its performance, maintenance, so that you can do a really accurate life cycle cost on what those various systems do inside a school. Because a school is operated way different than an office building or a warehouse or other facilities.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
So,
Thank you, Bill.
all right, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
You bet, thank you.
Aaron, you ready?
Too much time?
Hmm?
Took too much time.
Oh, that's okay, that means I get to go fast, right?
We don't have time limits.
Okay. All right, so I will start just kind of the
Really appreciate it.
general building update here. And then we'll move into kind of continuing our discussion from the special board meeting on the project enhancements. So overall in the building project, the overall GMP and bond budget are really steady and have not changed. On the contingency detail, the current contingencies are shown here alongside of forecasted contingencies. They've remained pretty much the same since last month. The forecast contingency for the soft cost there includes the master study. So for DOR. There's a detailed list of all the current accepted change orders or contingency use changes in the board package. So if you have any other questions on that. Substantial completion dates, no changes here. Still planning to have a substantial completion of the Learning Center on December 2nd or earlier. Just throw
Sorry,
that
I
in
sent
there
an
since
email
it's
to my team about warranties. So it's probably
here.
good.
So good, you didn't hear that anyway. But no, everything is run along great schedule-wise with the Learning Center. We do have some rain coming up this week, but the town board's team managed really well through the cold weather, and we're able to get just enough work done to not lose any days, which goes into weather days. And you can see in February, there are 5 contractual weather days, and they only claimed 3. So, in good shape on that. Key deliverables, just if you guys weren't aware, the town warden is going to do a topping out party, and are going to get a beam together and painted and set up in front of the high school on March 31st. And the administration and Mark Farrar are lining up all the students to be able to come out and sign that beam, and then there'll be a hoisting ceremony April, and put that on here, April 1st, I believe. So, and then I have on here deliverables, the furniture acceptance agreements. That's just the agreement that officially orders the furniture, something to keep a close eye on because it's a big order and has long lead times. So still shooting for that in July. Other key milestone dates. So this steel topping out here is a little bit earlier than the actual ceremonial one, but that's when they're substantially complete with the steel work out there on the Learning Center. Exterior sheathing started last week, and I'm getting some walls up around the building, and then the north parking lot work will start when school releases for the summer, and have the first area of the Learning Center dried in, meaning roof on by July.
How does that parking, is there any coordination between the summer school and, the parking and all that stuff?
The summer school at the high school won't be a big factor because of, most of it's gonna be
Well,
through engineering. There's gonna be some, but
yeah, I mean, we can work at moving
Around.
kids to the back, I mean, we've got
Okay.
some,
Yeah,
So it hasn't been all finalized yet?
summer school.
Ben's communicated pretty well with Mark about the north parking lot, actually just here in the last couple of days.
Okay.
So they're very much on the same page.
Yeah, McCown has a site plan that highlights all the areas of work, and we bring it up every week at the OAC, talking with Mark and Mitch about access and what activities are going on at the school. So I don't think it's 100% exactly how it's all going to work, but it's
Good.
being worked through. And then safety, still great safety record going, and no reported injuries or lost time accidents.
Yep. Sorry, I realized I have a mask on.
You can see your head moving.
Okay.
And that is not a question I've asked for them to give to me as near misses, so,
Hopefully it's a big number, that's what you're looking for.
yeah.
And you learn from it.
They're doing very good.
Now, you want me to report that?
You do. It's not exactly the culture that's on a job site.
Yeah.
All right, other risks, issues, and changes. So spring break work, I mentioned last week, there'll be a little bit going on over spring break that's been kind of communicated with Mitch and Mark over there. They're gonna be demoing out the stair to nowhere that went up the west side of the TPAC area there, and getting that new ramp connection installed. And we'll also be working throughout the TPAC area and the old gym, just putting in some pathways and hangers, preparing for the work this summer. And so summer work, just noting at the parking lot and a bunch going on inside the school that will all be coordinated with the staff and summer activities. Talked a little bit about last month, early procurement of construction materials and equipment with increasing costs and long lead times. So McCown Gordon's pay application this month, or for the month of February, included quite a bit of stored materials. It is all stored off-site for the most part at this time, but they have had some contractors start getting ahead on ordering things and holding them in their shops. So those items are ongoing, but no major need for anything on site as of right now. FF&E procurement, just a quick update running through. AV design is complete and starting to work on getting that stuff ordered and some roughing going in on site. Furniture design is underway. We're having bi-weekly meetings with the administration and some staff going through that design and final layout. Access control and security was bid out and awarded 2 weeks ago to WireNuts, local company, and that is for card readers and security cameras within the project, and those costs came in under budget, so it was really good there. Data cabling is out to bid through E-Rate, and I believe is due next week? This week. Oh yeah, 10th, right? So I get all the data cabling, and then Forrest and I were just talking before this meeting about getting bids out for IT equipment here in the next couple months. Starting to work with the district and staff on additional equipment and furnishing specialty items within different classrooms, trying to get a procurement schedule together on that. So that's kind of the next big thing there. Digital monument sign is kind of one of those specialty items. There is plans in the drawings in the budget for a digital monument sign out along 2440, kind of in front of the new entry. So we started looking into that, working with Mark and Lauren on what that looks like, and it will require a variance from the city planning and zoning because it's a residential zone and there's an existing historic monument sign, so it kind of makes two signs out there. So we just kind of started working through that process.
Is the sign new? I mean, because we went through planning and zoning and we had to get a variance on the.
That was
Building signs attached to the building.
That was on the east side of the.
But we didn't have the sign, outdoor sign on the plans.
Not designed. There's just rough-in for it out there. But that was not the specific idea of having two monument signs, and that the digital sign was not part of that variance, that signage variance.
I mean, have we picked out what that looks like, or how's that?
Not yet. That's what we just started.
Okay.
Just started talking to a couple vendors that do those signs, kind of getting their input on what's the best size for this site and what the administration tends to use it for.
Is it just here, this is what's here, or is it messaging?
Messaging.
So activities, that kind of stuff.
Yes, all current. That's the plan.
And the city has pretty strict. So almost every sign has to go to the variance committee. I mean,
Right. I mean, is it?
was on there when those were written, but
It'll be similar to like the bank signs.
Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of options, right? You can do one that's, 30 feet tall and a big pillar, and, the sign itself is 15 feet. But, I don't think that would probably get through the city, so it's more just like a monument sign, only it has a digital
Okay.
board to it.
So Drew, Baser actually, neighborhood district uses them. So if you go to Baser Elementary, they've got one. I think there's.
So are we talking Baser?
If you want to drive by
Don't do, that's a poor
No,
example.
as a reference on what they could look like.
I mean, the only thought I mean, when we did the last one, the issue came up because we're residential zoned. I mean, and there was questions raised because we are residential zoned, so maybe the city could consider zoning us appropriately as we go through this process, if that fits anything.
There are, I did take a quick look at the zoning, the signage and the zoning, and it's, I mean, it does allow for it, but it's, you know, restricted to certain sizes, and it says you can only have one monument sign per frontage. And now you're gonna have two, because you have that existing one that's, is a class donation, so obviously you don't wanna get rid of that one. We're moving it, but it's still gonna be on 2440, so now you have two monument signs. But, you know, I think a good argument can be made there, because one is its historic purpose, and one is, I mean, I guess you could move the historic one to a different frontage.
Absolutely.
There's options there.
If it really came down to it, but.
Yes.
Yeah, I just got caught off guard, thought that would've got caught in the original process, realizing we hadn't done it, but I know the zoning is an issue, and if, that's the only big thought I have on that is maybe our zoning needs adjusted.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I think in an ideal world, we would have gotten it in that original signage variance, but it was just a design element that kind of lagged. We knew we wanted it, but didn't know exactly what it looked like yet, so.
So, the location is set though?
Yes.
And then the rough end for all the conduits and everything as part of the parking and all that stuff is all
Yes.
coordinated?
Yeah, that's all there, it's just what are we putting on top of it. Okay, move management, so the move, management company that, we got brought for, approval last time, FSI held a kickoff meeting with, Lauren and others to outline the scope of the move process. So they'll continue to hold periodic meetings, work on developing that scope and schedule, and assembling bid packages for movers. So that'll happen here over the next couple of months. So I will report on any updates there. Project design enhancements. So, if there are any other questions on the building update, we can flip over.
I think it was February 22nd.
322.
No.
220.
No, we met on
Yeah,
the, we
yeah,
met
A lot
on,
of numbers being thrown out
222.
there.
we met on February 2.
You know, it's April. Sorry about that. Real quick pictures, from the job site. These are as of last Wednesday. You can see the joist and decking going on in the cafeteria area, some exterior studs, and then area F, the learning center, joists starting to go in as well. Okay. So, following the special board meeting, the request was to break this out, and I believe you've all seen this in advance, but breaking out this overall list into a couple different categories based on schedule, progress of the project. So anything, the items in the March 8th category are items that, in review with the county warden in the district, need to be either approved or rejected this evening, in order to coordinate with the ongoing work on site. So if they are rejected tonight, they would be significant more cost to do down the road, and probably would just fall off the list. Going forward, the October 11th is really kind of a last chance for the items in that column. Most of those are related to West Campus renovations, so that would allow enough time to incorporate those changes and begin renovations that would start the first of 2022. And then a few items remain in the 2022 column that really are more independent of actual construction activities within the buildings. and could be put off a bit longer if the board decides that. So the items before you tonight are item number 5, which is replacing the ceiling grid, tile, lights, and diffusers in the hallways surrounding the gym and the TPAC areas. And just for refresher, I can bring that map up here. So, as a point of clarification, I don't think I said this last time, but the hallway in front of the gym here, there's a weird structure thing going on, so that ceiling grid is actually like a floating cloud. So, and it's in really good shape. So that would just be tile and lights in that area. It'd be grid, tile, and lights in all the other red areas.
So when you say tile, you mean ceiling?
Ceiling tile,
Okay.
yeah. So all the other red areas would be new grid, new ceiling tile, new lights, new diffusers. The area in front of the TPAC is a really high, tall ceiling. There's no damage to any of that ceiling or anything, and it's up higher, so that was not included in this. But all the new tiles would match and be the same type, so.
That really high area, that's the one that has the drop down pendant style lights?
Yeah, it has those big, fancy bowl lights. So, okay, so that's item number 5 is that $80,000. Obviously, the bulk of that cost is the light fixtures. And then.
And that's LED lights, right? LED?
Yes, well, LED lighting fixtures that coordinate with the same type that's being used in the new edition. We kind of took off this additional heavy grind to match the gym, kind of put that on hold status, knowing that really the only reason to do that is if that floor gets pulled up and it has to be done. And then I think we've already talked about, obviously, the deduct.
Thank you,
One.
Brett.
We're gonna take that one.
Thank
So there you go. It's only $68,000. The additional hand sinks in the dry labs in the science classrooms. And number 14 is the what we've come to call the weeping wall. And this is the revised detail for attachment at the west side of the TPAC building and the east side of the existing gym building. So we can go through more details if you have more questions on that. And then we have the two, item 15 and 16 are the two that deal with the parking lot paving thickness. 15 is increasing the thickness 2 inches from 4 to 6 inches at the parking stalls only. And number 16 is increasing 1 inch from 6 inches to 7 inches at the east drive lane. The west side is already all 7 inches because that is where all the buses and deliveries go. Pull that up again here. It's a very large file.
So if we just took the upgrade to 6 inches, does that then make everything 6 inches?
Yes, everything, okay, let's start on the west side here. So this bus loop is already 7 inches.
Okay.
All this parking area is already 6 inches. We'd be talking about making this, all this blue area 6 inches. So you have 7 inch drive and 6 inch in your lanes and your parking. Going over here, right now the gray is already 6 inches and the blue is currently 4 inches. So this would be making this whole area 6, this whole area 6, this whole area 6. That's 7 inches. That increase of 1 inch is just this drive in the red. It is currently 6 inches everywhere the red is, and that would keep going to 7 inches.
Okay, so that's $60,000 is just for the red area.
Yeah, that whole thing going all the way out there.
So what was the original plan for the parking? Pavement thicknesses?
So what it is now, which is the drive lanes in between the parking stalls are all 6 inches, 4-inch base, 2-inch top. The parking stalls are currently 4 inches, 2-inch base, 2-inch top. And all the drive lanes where the buses and the trucks are, on the west parking lot, are all 7 inches full depth.
And what is the subgrade treatment?
Oh, I do not know that off the top of my head. Luke? It's per the geotech report. I believe there's 4 inches of gravel, compacted gravel.
I'm gonna text my group really quick.
If I had access to the internet right now, I could pull it up as well, but my files are on the internet.
They're doing warranty submissions right now.
At the dinner table. Everything that is designed right now, Chris, is designed per the geotechnical report's recommendations. So nothing is subpar or not meeting what is a good expectation of a good quality parking lot. So I'll say that. Now, you can always do better, right?
Well, we've experienced that before in this building.
Yeah.
We opened the building, we had mud squirting through the parking lot.
6 inches at 83
6 inches.
is what Ben just told me.
That's a lot.
66.
Mhm.
Pretty good base.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
He's sorry to press.
You know, we are doing the
It's
special.
just whirled a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not treating the subgrade with fly ash, lime, none of that.
Right.
So you're expecting a lot out of the soil in 6 inches of base rock.
Yeah. And again.
And your pavement's only gonna be as good as what you're putting it on.
Right. So, you know, there's special inspections on the project. So, the subgrade material, subgrade compaction, the 83 compaction, and the thickness of the
So
asphalt.
if we were to do this or approve this, who monitors the thickness and the variable elevation changes in cross slopes? Or do we take course later?
You can.
Yeah, the special inspection, PSI is supposed to take course.
And Chris, we can pull strings and document it too.
Very good.
We could do it, I mean, we could even, we've done it before where we do a pre-inspection, right? Where we pull strings like the night before we're supposed to pave.
Right.
Do measurements, anybody can come look and everybody make sure that everybody's comfortable or.
Well, I just know it's important.
Yeah,
The parking lot becomes the rooftop air conditioner. If you do it cheap, then it becomes problematic.
yeah, it's no different than a rooftop. It's a hard place to put money back into
Right.
a school.
So, yes, so those are really two separate things. You can do both, you can do one, you can do either. They are both improvements to, I guess, what the geotechnical engineer recommends would be a good construction.
But by going from 6 inches from 4 to 6, then we've opened up, I'm not a paving person, but a mill and overlay later on in the future, which sounds to me like that's, I assume that's an advantage, is that correct?
Yeah, so I think Lauren forwarded you guys, kind of a synopsis that McCown Gordon's team and the engineer put together.
Right.
responding to the previous question about, okay, well, what does that get you? And yeah, part of that was, if you have 4 inch, it's really tough to ever mill an overlay. So yes, if you had 6 inches, you could do a mill and overlay in the future. That's more likely than if you're up to the 4 now. But you still, you know, it all, life expectancy and quality of your asphalt is still gonna come down to maintenance. Proper maintenance, proper loads on the asphalt. And yeah.
Isn't it gonna be very likely that buses are gonna drive down that, you don't have it up more, but down that road, since we're gonna have the gym, the new gym over on that side anyway? It seems like we're gonna have, even on that drive around that parking area, you're also gonna have buses probably driving on that fairly frequently.
Our conversations, with Mark regarding activities and things is that the expectation would be like visiting teams would come up that road, drop off in the rear on the south side of the building, so there would be bus traffic.
So
Yeah.
those white areas outside the blue areas would still have bus traffic on them then, right?
Yeah.
Outside of that red drive?
Not probably ours to the point of an everyday ordeal, but they would see an occasional bus for any activity we hosted on that side.
Which could be a bus every day of the week almost.
Yeah,
or 2
no, it
days a
absolutely
week.
could be.
So any of our paving will be 6 inches, at least 6 inches.
If we approve.
If we approve that
If you approve this.
item,
Yeah.
it's 15.
Yeah, if you approve 15, all of your paving will
11,000.
be at least 6 inches.
Here's, do you mind if I throw something in about this
Absolutely.
overall project column?
Yeah.
So, in follow-up to the last meeting, and I'm even, not even gonna try to throw numbers out, you know, wrong. Me, Darren, and I were at the church, we went back and did just a risk analysis, we do it on lots of projects where we sort of evaluate the project, where it's at, the risks in the project that we think are there, or experience related to some of the projects. And I would just tell you that you guys are in a really good place from a financial position on the project and where we could anticipate risks being. As an example, we're building 18–20%, if you will, on the project and have spent 5% of the construction contingency. So we're in a great spot. We're gonna do another full-blown risk assessment in the summer. And if we're in a really good position, we'll be able to talk about that October thing, and there may even be money currently within our GMP that we can start recognizing we may not need. I can't guarantee you that today, but this project's gone well, including things like being able to push the steel guys through the winter without spending a bunch of winter protection money. Things have gone well so far on the project, and you can't guarantee that they're gonna continue to go well, but you have a benefit of being in a really good spot, I guess, from a financial standpoint, which I hope, you know, I just want you to make the right decision for the district. It doesn't matter to us if you add things to our contract or not, we just want you to do the right thing, right? And I think you have, based on what we see, the ability financially to do that, to make good decisions that will be better for this project long term.
Appreciate that.
So yeah, like we talked about in breaking this out, this first column is really kind of what we wanna make sure gets through the day. If the board feels so inclined and wants to look at some of these things, from the October list, but otherwise we can do that, more in-depth, risk analysis when we get a few more months here through the spring, and come back and talk about some of those opportunities there, so.
Yeah, we've got everything in the on the agenda. I mean,
Okay.
we can't address any of the October ones on our,
Right.
approved the agenda for the 9th, but step back just a little bit, the hallways, the grids and the lights, the flooring out in front of the gym where it was repolished, I think it looks really nice.
Yeah.
So are we leaving the tiles up and down these hallways? We're
No,
taking
those
it
are
out?
already-
We just don't know for sure how much polishing we're gonna do?
Yeah, the floors, all the VCT is coming up and getting polished concrete. It is currently spec'd as a medium grind, which matches all of the new, polished concrete floors in the new buildings. So.
The heavy grind is just if there's the glue
If
sticks
there's
or the
the
cracks
waves
and all the
that-
stuff in it that were on the other one.
Yeah, yeah. And so it, just kind of share thought process, talking through that, we talked about the gym is kind of the old, original part of the building. So it kind of makes sense in some ways for it to be a little bit different, and it's, unique thing. And then keeping with this whole, you want to feel like the rest of the building is all new and you're not walking through the old parts. So everything else will be consistent and look the same.
Is it, besides the lights, I mean, that new school doesn't have the ceiling, does it have the ceiling tiles and grids like this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's areas of open ceiling with baffles.
Yeah, I
but-
thought there was a lot of opens. I mean, there's some areas with,
But yeah, the hallways, the classroom hallways and the classrooms themselves all have the grid and tile, and it will all be the same.
You said the lights was a significant portion of that.
Yeah.
You said like 50%, 75%?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it was, Drew, I don't remember. It was broken out in the pounds pricing, but I don't recall anymore.
That's fine.
any other questions for Aaron on this?
The only question I have is, when I look at some of these, obviously it's not my job, it's not my project, but it is my responsibility to spend dollars wisely. Some of these seem to me like are not detrimental right now, and we could go back and do them. Is that not accurate? The one item I see with the connection of the buildings, I understand that. I personally have a little bit of a situation with swallowing that. It almost seems like it got overlooked to me for $76,000 that now the district's got to absorb. I know we talked about it a little bit before. I struggle with that. And to see some of this other stuff seems like it could be done at a later time.
Yeah, I think everything, and that's why it was broken out. Everything that is in the October or 2022 column. I think we talked about this a little bit at the special board meeting, but the ceiling grid and tile and lights and diffusers and the TPAC, you could probably do that later, but McCowan's going to polish those floors this summer. So it's just coming back into a brand new renovated space and tearing it up again if you do that later. So it makes.
Some of that's to get you the best deal.
Yeah.
So if you come back, it could be more expensive.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
Or
I get
drive premiums because there's too much work in the summer in an area, right? So you're working overtime when you may not have needed to. So that's what's driving that. And if I guess we may never get on the same page about the leaves. I feel like I'd address it, right? It did get missed, right? If we would have caught it, Chris, the GMP, the contract we would have would have been more money, right? And I apologize that we're even in this situation. I would prefer not to be here. But the reality is we want to do it right.
And I, absolutely, but it shouldn't be the district's responsibility to absorb $76,000.
If we would have caught it, I guess what I'm saying is the district, it would have been $76,000 more.
The GMP.
It did have been
Right,
in the
because
original
it's
design.
not redoing work that's already been done. That's not it.
Okay.
It's flat out just new scope.
Okay.
And I went back and found out why, right? And I don't want this to lean on an excuse, I just think it gives a little bit of a lens to it, but the site investigations we would have done for this would have been done when the design was far enough along, so there were some really good details in it. That would have been May, June, July. And our team wasn't, we were just shut down from a COVID standpoint. I don't want that to be an excuse, but that's the reality of it. We just didn't have people out and about unless they had. And
Yeah.
so, again,
No, I understand.
so.
Thanks, Lou. Any other questions on these items or issues or items for Aaron? No? No, we'll probably keep moving through the agenda. Going once, going twice on this presentation.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. We'll move into the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried unanimously. Gets us into public forum. I don't think we have anybody wanting to speak tonight. Update, Lauren, report.
Yeah, my report's in there, and I'll run through this as quickly as I can, but I did appreciate the detail that we went through on these enhancements. And as you can see, I just highly recommend that we look at this, and especially even like the gym halls and PPAC halls. I just feel that if we don't do it now, there's a great likelihood it'll fall off our project list. And it just seems like I think the board's attitude about doing things right has just been spot on, and this falls under that. And, I really wanted to hear what Chris had, and I'm more convinced now about the 7-inch overlay on the driveways and using the buses using that back way. It was good to see that because I wasn't real sure until tonight. So I feel better about all that. So anyway, I would love to see the board take those 5 items and move forward with them and really do this project to the best of our ability under the current situation that we're in. And then, another thing that's really become to the top for us, Mitch and I talk about this almost every meeting, is we really need to start looking at what our recommendation is going to be for our transportation and maintenance facilities. We need to make the right choice. That's going to be there for 25 years or longer. And I talked to a board member out at the wrestling tournament. And we talked about maybe making another run at the one site a year ago, that got shot down by the zoning. But we also maybe need to look at another strategy of, we keep talking about a large parking lot on the west side of West Campus that would have multi-use for us, the rec commission, for possible bus parking. But we don't know. We haven't even started that. That would put Jill in West Campus. Her office would then be in like one of the classrooms in West Campus. To try to simplify that, possibility then is to maybe look at just a maintenance shop with a bus bay, down where the old concession stand is on the east side of the old soccer field, down in that flat area. That's probably an area that Mitch prefers, which would allow, this is all the chain reaction of maybe the maintenance building being used for, CT programs enhancement. So there's just a lot of things going on there. The strategic plan, Tanya and I have had some good conversations about this, and we won't touch on it too much because actually our current strategic plan has been extended a year because of the COVID situation, but then we will start a year from now almost on rewriting our strategic plan. That will be another 5-year plan, and that's about the same cycle as most schools in the state of Kansas. So we'll identify these areas again. These were identified in our previous strategic plan, and Tanya and I will be working on that. Special board meeting in 2 weeks, which will be an in-depth look at the RSP demographic study. which I think will be very interesting if you've had a chance to look at 40 pages of information, or maybe not quite 40, but there's a lot of pages of information. And then at the second part of that meeting, Amber Beverly's going to come in and just kind of get us started on that master plan, where if there's any questions, that you might have for her in that process. And then she wants to hear, obviously, what RSP's going to share with the board that night. So those two are related. We've talked about maybe doing a Board of Education goal, boardmanship training sometime this summer, like a retreat. And we'll look at, hopefully, I know you guys do a lot of meetings, give up a lot of time, but I think that would be a really important meeting for us. We can do that in one setting, or I think the last time we did it was in a 2-evening type setting. We do want to meet with Tonganoxie City officials. That's been a goal, I think, of Jim Bothwell, board president, to try to reach out. We actually, I think, the mayor and others have reached out to us for possible communication. I think that's a good process that we need to look at. We are working, and I'll be working on an MOU with the Rec Commission. That's a high priority for me, and that was asked about at our last meeting. Tanya is, are you going to touch on summer school in your report? Briefly. So we're working on that. We have a meeting tomorrow with our administrative team where we'll go in a lot more in depth on what that's going to look like. And then, of course, KSD is telling us about the ESSER II accountability and audits. And that's a big topic right now, along with, the other issue, of course, is the natural gas bills that we don't even know what they're going to look like yet. We have not heard, even though we've reached out to K-Jump, is who we have our natural gas purchase through. They're holding back a lot of information. I don't know if there's going to be some support from the federal and state government, but we haven't got our latest, February bill. Obviously, those usually run a couple of months behind.
So like this, sorry.
Go ahead.
I brought it up for, I guess, with Chuck. So you know how many dollars you have, and you're just trying to sort that out?
Yeah,
and maybe that'll be in your report.
Yes, we know exactly how much we have. We've got the new bus. Bus 50 is on site. We just have to get it inspected and get a radio in it, and it's ready to go and looks great. And then, of course, I did mention we have another bus on order that replaces the bus that was totaled in the accident. We met with Mitch. There's a bunch of us. Met with the people from Musco and Capital Electric. What was that, Friday? I think it was. And they're going to, they did a site visit with everybody involved, located where the new poles will be located on the 15-yard lines. Everything fits, looks good. Probably sometime in April is when they're going to start that, digging these large holes for the base of the light poles. And then we did meet also last week with, on Thursday, remember the question about the wrestling facility? Everything looks really good. We had a good visit with Coach, and we have a rendition of what it's going to look like, and it's going to be top notch. He was really on board with it. I just want to throw this, I don't know if I put it in here, but he was concerned about space. He currently has a little under, like around 2,900 square feet in his present facility. He's going to have 3,500 square feet. And that was big for him. It's a little bit wider, but it's considerably longer. And so he has a lot of circles, and he was thrilled. We just hadn't touched base, from the design development stage until then. So it went well, very well. Just wanted you to know that. That's what I got. Any questions?
Questions for Lauren? Anyone?
Thank you.
No, we'll move on over to Tanya. Any update?
All right, state assessment update. KELPA, which is the English Language Learners Assessment, is ongoing. They are finished at the middle and high school, and they are testing this week at the elementary. So that will be wrapped up at the end of this week. English language arts and math and science will be, the test window for that is April 1st through May 18th. And if students are currently remote from home, they'll have to come in to test. So our building administrators and counselors and our test coordinators are putting together schedules of when we can safely bring those students in to where they feel safe and secure in our environment with COVID and all that. And they'll be letting parents know when those dates are. Okay, summer school, we've been working a lot behind the scenes. You're not hearing much yet because there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Buildings are putting together their plans for how to identify which students specifically would be appropriate for summer school. We've got those details that we're working out. Our dates and times are pretty well set right now. We haven't put that out there yet because we just don't want to put the cart before the horse. So I've also met with Jill Keatsman about transportation. Again, it'll depend on those students, the specific students who will attend summer school and how those routes will go. I've also visited with Barb Smith, and we've got summer meal plans that we will address for our summer school, and we should be good to go. With the SR2 funds, it looks or it appears that we would have enough, depending how we design our summer school and finish things up, that we could spread that over 2 summers. So we'd have enough for this summer and next summer if we make our budget correctly. So that's what I'm planning on, and that's where we're looking to allocate those funds. Also for our social emotional learning committee, we are in the process of reviewing data. We're writing our long-term goals, and those are our, like, where we see social emotional learning in the district in the next 3 to 5 years. We'll be writing our long-term goals this next meeting, which is tomorrow. We also have a survey put together that is going to determine what we already have existing in our buildings for resources. A lot of times we don't call things a certain name. So teachers are already doing things in their classroom for social emotional learning, but we may not be calling it that right now. So we've got a process put together where we can look at the resource inventory of what we currently have, what we're currently doing, and then we can begin to look at where our needs are. We'll be looking at different curriculum and resources that we'll bring in samples and look through those. We'll put together a plan of how to roll that out with professional development, how it will look in each building. We'd like to use the same vocabulary or language so that our kids won't have different things to learn every time they change buildings. So it'll be a seamless pre-K through 12 system. And we're using Castle, which is the top-notch social emotional learning go-to for everybody. It's a one-stop shop, and they have amazing resources. We're using their district-wide SEL action planning workbook. And that's where we are for that.
Hey, Tanya, Lauren, what, is it a safe assumption that, assuming that the pandemic continues down the path it is and everyone's getting vaccinated, that remote learning will not be a thing at Tonganoxie for next school year?
That is true, and I'll be talking with our administrators about that tomorrow. Remote learning will not be permitted next school year according to KSDE, unless the pandemic switches and we go back to full-blown, we have to.
I know it's the administrator's desire.
Well, and it will not be permitted by KSDE, so we won't be able to offer
So we couldn't do
them.
it if we wanted to. Not that we do, but we could.
Right, but we need to have an option, because even before pandemic, there are some kids out there that school, they just don't fit. It doesn't meet their needs the way school is now. So Baser has a virtual program that they have been doing for many years. We are not at that point yet to where we're ready to start our own virtual, but we will here shortly within the next couple of years. Meanwhile, Greenbush has put into place a virtual program that we can be a part of, and we've signed up to do that. It doesn't cost us anything up front. We can use it if we need to and want to, or if we don't, there's no penalty. So we're signed up with them for at least the next year and maybe 2. We're looking at that tomorrow on how we offer that, because virtual school, while it's appropriate for some kids, it's not appropriate for all kids. And it might not be, we want to make sure that whatever our kids choose and what we put them in is absolutely appropriate. So there'll be a process put into place of, if you're interested in this, you need to meet with these counselors, put a plan into place. So we've got all that ready to go, and I'm meeting with the administrators tomorrow about how we're going about gathering that information and preparing to roll out.
Yes, sir. with this KSD thing, I mean, is there no like, I know it's not necessarily popular, but if it's snow days, is there not a reason we can't just like have remote school for a day and not miss? I mean, is that gonna be all banned? I mean,
That's
most
up to
workplaces
each.
are going a lot remote, I mean, are making plans that they're not gonna be full-time. So it's like, but school's gonna have to be all, I mean, it's the best in person, but it just seems like
Right.
people
That,
need
I
to learn
believe,
to.
that will be permitted as far as my understanding, if it's an occasional, like a snow day or whatever. Here, we elected to use our snow days first because that's what we've been doing forever. And then if we need to, we'll put into place remote snow days. Right now, that's a little bit tough because we're not prepared. Most of the time on a snow day, it's not, well, you know, a week in advance, we're gonna have a snow day on Thursday. Sometimes it's decided early that morning, and our elementary kids currently don't take their devices home every day. So that's something we have to really prep and plan and prepare for. We can look at that into next year, but as part of what we had planned for this year, we
Yeah,
just did what we had
yeah,
planned.
It's also
understand it.
concerning to me that you have staff trying to teach students while they may have their own children at home, that they're then trying to manage. It doesn't work very well, I
No.
don't think, when you have
Yeah.
them trying to teach while they're managing
And
children off to the side.
if you have inclement weather too, a lot of times you don't have power, so we'd have to worry about that as well.
People
And-
don't have internet even when there is power.
Right. So, while some schools have used it this year, we've been hesitant, so.
I have a question about summer school. So do you have a total number of spots available?
Not
And
yet.
so, like, how are you setting that up then? How, like,
Right
is it-
now, for our high school, it's going to be those students who need credit recovery. And if there are students maybe that just need a little bit more time at the end of the year to finish up, we'll give them some time just to finish completing what they need to complete.
Is that through recommendations of the teachers?
Well, that's coursework. I mean,
That's what
if
I
they
mean.
don't meet their requirements to pass the class and they need additional time, then we
Right.
give them that time. Middle school will be credit recovery. We call it credit recovery, they don't earn credits at middle school. So if the student has failed the class, they will be taking it this summer. But also those kids who are falling, still have that learning gap, we're gonna offer summer school to those kids as well.
So what if those kids don't take it? That's probably gonna be my next, what if you've offered it to some kids and they aren't interested?
Can't.
You can't open it up to other people?
Oh,
who
yes,
then-
well, yes. I mean,
Other families who are outside of that group that are interested in having their child participate?
we're gonna offer it to those kids who need it. And if we have to pull in more staff to do that, we will do that.
But what if a child isn't identified as a high need, but a parent would like them to participate?
Well, that's where I struggle a little bit because we may have some really high achievers who really just wanna be here and.
But you can't force them to participate, so if you still have open spots, that's where I'm thinking, is if you have
I
open
don't know if
spots
we've
available.
identified the
Well, we're
spots.
not gonna limit it. We're not gonna say we're not taking more than 50 kids, and if we get to 51, no, you
But
can't
you have to
come.
have staff to manage it, you have to have some
Right.
limitation because of staff.
Well, right. I mean, we're gonna offer it to as many staff as we need.
Typically, what are the numbers passed?
We have not had elementary summer school since I've been here. So
Okay.
this will be the first time, so I don't know honestly.
So high school then, you have
High
in middle
school
school?
credit recovery, it's varied from year to year. We've only offered credit recovery at the high school and middle school since I've been here, and it's those kids who just have failed a course they need to take.
Okay.
And it's varied. At the middle school, we've offered it, is it 2 or 3 years? And it's been fewer each year. High school, well, with middle school, we've staffed it with 1 or 2 teachers because there's been so few. And their coursework is through Edgenuity, so it's not direct teacher instruction all the time, it's a monitoring piece. High school, same way. We've staffed it with 1 English, 1 math, 1 science teacher so that they have their core teachers present to assist them. And those numbers have varied, but I wanna say last year maybe, well, I can't tell you last year. It's varied quite a bit.
Well, last year we did.
Well, we did, but it was more from home.
Yeah, it was awful.
And that was terrible. I mean, it's better if you bring those kids in.
So with the COVID, we anticipate a very high number.
Could be.
Well-
At the elementary, we're looking at 2 teachers per level.
That's what we're estimating
That's
at
our
this
estimate.
point. Yeah, we're gonna try to
Two
bring in,
teachers per grade level.
So that's a third,
50 kids.
a third of the kids in each grade, basically.
Well, they may not have as 18 kids per, yeah, I mean, let's drop that down. They may have closer to 10 per.
we'll invite all of the kids who we think need summer
Maybe,
school, and we
I
will
think Chris,
staff.
that's about right. 50 to 60 probably,
Is what you anticipate?
at the high school, maybe more.
I don't.
You don't think so?
No,
I
well,
don't know.
I mean,
I was
it
thinking
depends.
50 on top of
Some
mine.
kids though, when you tell them, hey, you're gonna have to come to summer school, they kick it in gear and get it done. And we've attached in the past few years a piece to that where we make those kids pay something up front for their credit recovery, like, hey, you failed this class and you need to take it and you need some responsibility toward it. But then if they complete it successfully, we refund most of their money. So that's kind of a carrot, like, okay, I have to pay for this and I need it to graduate, and I'm gonna get money back if I do it successfully. And if they complete it early, we let them go early instead of making them stay for the full duration of summer school.
And the elementary summer school is gonna last, I think, a week longer
Yes.
than the high school, middle school. It's gonna go all June. High school, I think, is run from the 1st through like the 17th.
1st through 17th, and
3
elementary
days a
is
week,
1st through
4
24th.
days a week.
Oh,
4 days a week, 8:30 to 11:30.
But there's not gonna be a limitation on the number of kids.
No, we're gonna
No.
talk about it, though.
No, we're gonna serve those kids who need it and will come.
Well, cause there's those gap kids,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some that are like kind of on the edge where they
Oh,
really
yeah.
could benefit from some, but they're not like highly identified.
Now, I've stood on summer schools in previous districts that I've worked in, and I've never lacked for staff. I've always had plenty of staff wanting to stay and help the kids, and they get paid for it too. You know, it's not like they're giving up free time for nothing, they're getting paid for it. So I've never had a problem staffing summer schools in the past.
It's not just staffing, it's also getting the kids identified in the building.
Have you already started staffing? Like, has it already, is that something?
We've begun talking. High school and middle school won't be a problem because they've done it in the past and they know what to expect. Elementary, it's new for them, but we've already started planting the seeds and be thinking if you want to work this summer and how, you know, how many of you. So we've got some chatter already. We'll staff it.
Feel like a target when we're trying to get an announcement out, so we can, I mean, I know
Well,
there's a
they're
lot of
pretty
stuff
quick.
to do.
Well, and part of it will be on MAP scores, so as soon as we know, now, credit recovery piece is gonna be a little bit later because those kids, I mean, they'll know if they're on kind of the bubble, but, you know, if they fail a course, they're gonna be coming back, so. We'll try to get it out as soon as possible, once we have, I mean, at least by the 1st of May, I would think, for elementary and middle, just to get those gap kids.
I feel we got a lot of plan, I mean, there's a lot of
Tomorrow's a big
planning
day.
on the, you know, on the parent side.
Yes, but it's a bonus that will offer transportation and meals, so that's huge.
All right, any other questions for Tanya? All right, if none, we'll move into the action items. These carry over from Erin's original conversation. So I guess she might be ready for questions if we have any on those. Guess I'd move into action item 5.1, the enhancements for the gym and TPAC hallways. I think that's the $80,000 item for ceiling tiles. Is there any discussion or a motion on that? Action 5.1.
I make the motion to approve action item 5.2.
5.1. Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Same sign. All right, 5 yes. All right, that motion carried. Good item 5.2, the weep locations on the existing walls. Any discussion or?
No, second one is signs, is that my wrong?
No, I got 5.2 is the weep
Okay, I'm
location.
sorry.
Is there a discussion or a motion on the weep walls?
I move that we approve item 5.2, weak locations on existing exterior walls.
there a second?
I would second that.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimously. 5.3, project enhancements for the science classroom. Any discussion or motion?
I have a little bit of a discussion. Like, to me, that seems like a safety issue, especially in chemistry labs, if there's not a classroom sink. Am I right on that, or is that?
The actual wet labs, the chemistry, biology wet labs already have sinks.
So this is a separate in the classroom?
Yeah,
Like, the
these
classrooms are separate from the
dry
lab?
labs, so they will be doing, like chemical experiments. It's more of a hand washing station or, some small, yes.
I was thinking some of the biology courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more the dry lab.
Okay.
Any other comments? Motion on that? For item 5.3?
Make a motion to approval of project enhancement for the science classroom sinks.
Second it.
All right. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimously. Item 5.4 is the asphalt, 6-inch asphalt across the entire parking lot. Any discussion? Motion?
Make a motion for item 5.4, approval of project enhancement of all parking area thicknesses increased to 6 inches.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. Item 5.5 is the 7 inches, and I guess if I understand that correctly, it's just that road on the exterior by the field. Any discussion, any further discussion on that?
I move that we approve item 5.5, all drive lane thickness increased to 7 inches.
Is there a second?
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimously. All right. With that, that's all the action items. Item 6. I think we need a short
How much
executive
time do you
session.
need, Nolan?
What's that?
How much time do you?
I'd say just 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yes.
I move to enter into executive session for 10 minutes after a 3-minute recess.
Sure. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
To have preliminary discussions about the acquisition of real property to protect the district's financial interest and bargaining position. I invite Mr. Feldkamp into executive session.
All right. So it's, see everyone in there at 8:05.
Back.
on the school year. All right, call things back to order after executive session, no action items. Possible announcements, I guess it's just the 22nd, we're gonna have that.
6 o'clock here, it'll be here in the elementary
Okay.
with RSP and Amber. Beverly.
All right. That, I believe that is it. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you guys.
You've never been in there, though.
Have a good spring break.